it's just going to work like that. So you probably have to go like, and then center it.
Okay.
Page down.
So you have to use the page down button.
Yeah.
Or the.
Because I don't think.
Okay, that works.
And this doesn't have PDF reader or anything on it, so. But that'll work.
How do you move it like this? Is there a button here you hold in?
For that.
Is it 2 fingers?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just 2 fingers. So I can just use that
Yeah.
as well. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Is it better to send you like in a PowerPoint format or that?
Whatever. However, I mean, you want to do it.
Either way works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for the City of Smyrna. Today is Monday, July 13th. It's 6 p.m. and this meeting is called to order. At this time, we'd like to ask that all of your electronic devices be turned off as they interfere with our recording equipment. For those of you joining us for the first time, this meeting is conducted much like a council meeting. As such, each application will include a presentation from city staff followed by a question and answer session between staff and the board. Following staff's presentation, we'll have the applicant present their case and answer any questions. Once all the questions have been satisfied, we'll have an opportunity for anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to the application. We ask that you come forward one at a time, and please allow enough time and space at the podium for us to do some cleaning, some sanitizing, that kind of thing. We are also, this is going to be a little bit of growing pain for all of us. This is only our second meeting back since the COVID pandemic, and this meeting we're adding a little nuance to it to where we're actually going to have some phone calls from citizens that we will have their questions and answers. We also have Keith Bentley, our Ward 3 representative. He's actually on the phone and watching the stream live. So You guys bear with us, and we'll do the best we can to get us through this as quickly and safely as possible and get as much information to you and as much information from you about the application that's being presented tonight. We do ask that you come. We do ask that you wear a mask at all times in the meeting, and that we keep a minimum distance of 6 feet. If you do come to the podium to speak and you feel comfortable, please remove the mask. It'll help us. It sounds more like a muffler, and we may not be able to completely understand if you're still wearing your mask. So if you feel comfortable, please remove the mask. If not, we'll do the best we can. State your name and address for the record, and sign the sign-in sheet at the podium. Also, please direct all your comments to the board, and then we'll do our best to get your questions answered so that we can move through this efficiently. Okay. The first item on our agenda is item 2020-84. This item is to be tabled to the August 10th, 2020 Planning and Zoning meeting at the request of the applicant. Do we have a motion to table, please? A motion to table, Mr. Seagraves. Second, Mr. Rice. All in favor, please vote. Mr. Bentley, are you in favor of tabling the first item on our agenda? All right, we're gonna skip that. I'm gonna approve it 5-0. Now I understand. All right, the next item on our agenda is 2020-233. This is zoning request Z20-006. This item is to be tabled to the August 10th, 2020 Planning and Zoning meeting at the request of the applicant. Do I have a motion to table this item? A motion, Mr. Bartlett. Second, Mr. Seagraves. All in favor? The item's tabled 5-0. Okay. The next item on our agenda is 2019-440. This is zoning request Z19-019, rezoning from NRC and O&I to MU for the development of 170-unit independent senior living facility, 114 townhomes at a density of 11.85 units per acre. This is 23.95 acres in land lots 775, 810, and 811. 2320 Campbell Road, Inline Communities LLC is the applicant. Mr. Staubs, the background, please.
Good evening, thank you. Joey Staubs, Planner 2, Community Development. This is rezoning case Z19-019. Applicant is Inline Communities LLC. Be heard tonight, and then your recommendation will go to Mayor and Council on August 17th. So this is the intersection of Spring Road and Campbell Road. It's about 24 acres in Ward 1. It's currently vacant lot. Proposed use is a mixed-use development with 170 senior living facility units and 114 townhome units. Current zoning is NRC and OI in the county, and the proposed zoning is mixed-use conditional. So it'll be, the application is to annex into the city and rezone it to mixed use. This is the future land use area map. Current land use is community activity center in the county. They're looking to retain that land use designation. To the north is regional activity center in the county, and into the city, and community activity center. To the east is public institutional and regional activity center. To the south is high density residential in the county. To the west is low density residential. This is the proposed site plan. I'll go through all the different items in the site plan. At the north part of the development is the 170-unit senior independent living facility. There'll be 4 stories. In the middle section is an internal amenity area for that building. There are 64 front entry townhomes. That'll be 24 by 44. And there are 50 rear entry townhomes that are 20 by 44. The setbacks for the senior living facility is a front setback of 20, a side setback of 0, where it abuts the convenience store gas station, and then a rear setback of 40. For the townhomes, it's a front setback of 20, side setback of 15, and a rear setback of 40. There are 2 pocket parks for the senior facility right at the intersection, and it'll have 211 parking spaces. So there are 5 gated points of entry. The access point at Spring Road, the access road off Campbell Road for the senior living facility, there's 2 gated access points. And then there's a gated access point at the north for the townhomes, and then 1 at Woodruff Drive. This is the swimming pool for the townhome community. And then another pocket park. There are 30 guest parking spaces for the townhome community. And there's a proposed road extension that'll connect to Woodruff Drive. Another proposed road extension that serves for the Spring Road extension on the Spring Road LCI plan. There's a full access drive off Campbell Road. They will have to install a left turn lane coming into the development, and then a decel lane for a right turn lane into the development. There's a right in, right out access point at Spring Road, excuse me. There's a stream buffer that runs along the eastern side of the development. And then there's a 10-foot landscape buffer that'll abut the Vinings Point subdivision. Down at the bottom of the development is their detention facility. So they are requesting 5 variances. Reduction of the side setback for the senior living facility from 15 feet to 0 feet. Reduction of side to back building separation from 30 feet to 25 feet. Reduction of front to back building separation from 40 to 35 feet. Reduction of the buffer strip from 50 feet to 10 feet. Reduction of rear setback from 100 feet to 40 feet. This is their proposed tree plan, showing all of the tree save areas and then the landscape buffer. And then this shows the type of vegetation that will be planted. These are the proposed site sections showing from inside the development. So at the top is the ridge line that abuts Vinings Point subdivision. So that area will be at the top of the ridge, and then it slopes down as you go towards the internal road in the development. They will plant the landscape buffer at the top of the ridge, and then the townhomes from Vinings Point perspective, you'll see 2 stories of the townhome. The 3 stories will be inside as you were inside the development. This is the proposed elevation of the senior living facility. And then the townhomes. These are pictures of the subject property and then the adjacent properties. So staff recommends approval of the rezoning from NRC and I to mixed use conditional on 23.95 acres for the development of 170 independent senior living facility units and 114 townhome units at a density of 11.85 units per acre. Excuse me. I now have a lot of conditions to read. Standard conditions regarding the composition of homes for the townhome, regulates where hardy plank can be, and there has to be a mixture of architectural elements. 2, the retention pond has to be screened. 3, there shall be protective covenants on all the lots, so they'll have a HOA. 4, developer shall provide 200 square feet of common area per lot. 5, all utilities will be underground. 6, they'll be responsible for any traffic improvements and sidewalk improvements. 7, a strip of brick pavers or stamped concrete shall be installed at the subdivision entrance. 8, the development of any streets will conform to the city standards. 9, no debris shall be buried. 10, they'll have to install decorative streetlights within the development. 11, they'll have to comply with our tree ordinance. 12, all landscape plans must be stamped by a Georgia registered landscape architect. 13, all yards and common areas are to be sodded. These are the special conditions. 14, regarding the setbacks, which is front 20, major side of 20, side of 15, the side of the western side of the senior tract 0, and the rear 40. 15, they'll have the following building separations. Side to side is 20 feet, side to rear is 25 feet, rear to rear is 30 feet, front to side is 30 feet, front to back is 40 feet, front to front is 35 feet. 16, the maximum impervious surface area is 65%. 17, maximum building height is 35 feet for the townhomes. 18, the maximum number of units per building shall be 6 units. So that's regarding the townhome. There's no more than 6 townhomes per row. 18, they'll install a deceleration lane at the entrance of the development along Spring Road and Campbell Road. 20, minimum driveway length shall be 22 from curb of street or back of sidewalk, or 18 feet from alleyways. 21, private streets shall have a minimum of 46 feet. 22, 25-foot impervious surface area shall be compensated at a ratio of 1 to 1 square feet for any encroachment. 23, they'll have to comply with all fire access requirements. 24, they'll have to be responsible for any water and sewer improvements. 25, they'll have to be responsible for stormwater improvements. 26, they will provide a 10-foot landscape buffer. 27, they'll have to replace any disturbed sidewalk, curb, and gutter. 28, they'll have to make a sidewalk connection from the development to Campbell Road. 29, they will dedicate right-of-way along Campbell Road to meet the minimum of 30 feet from center line. 30, developer shall paint do not block at the intersection of Woodruff Road and Spring Road. 31, the private gated streets will meet fire department requirements. 32, independent senior housing facilities shall be marketed and leased to persons 55 years of age or older. 33, they'll be bound to the site plan submitted. And then 34, they'll be bound to the elevation submitted. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Stobbs? No? All right, thank you, sir. At this time, we'd like to ask the applicant to come forward. If you just give us a second, Mr. Moore, and tell us a little bit about your plan. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Planning and Zoning Board. It's great to see you tonight, and I mean that. It's just great to see you here tonight. Appreciate your time. As you know, we've all worked through this incredibly difficult time, and I appreciate how the city is holding these meetings so that the business of the city can continue, and the extraordinary efforts that you and city staff has gone through to make sure we can do it this way. So I just want to appreciate the city and city staff for what they've been able to do. I'm Kevin Moore. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Inline Communities, and the property owner in this application for rezoning. This property, as Mr. Stobbs went through, I think very diligently and very well, is 24 acres and is proposed for rezoning from its existing NRC and O&I, which is commercial, retail, and an office institutional, to mixed-use conditional for 170-unit senior living, age-restricted senior living facility, as well as 114 for-sale townhomes. Kind of want to go through an overview of the area and then get down to some real details about some of the plan specifics for you and why we believe this particular application is well justified and hopefully will earn your recommendation for approval. First, what we've shown for you here is the area. From a zoning map standpoint, you can see the property highlighted in the middle. And just as staff noted in its very detailed analysis, the surrounding area is noted by multifamily zonings and uses, both adjacent and in the area. It's noted by existing commercial uses, retail uses, institutional uses, a variety of other commercial uses, as well as single-family uses. Adjacent to us is Vinings Point. That's the PRD subdivision. It's adjacent along our eastern boundary, as well as condominiums and apartments in the surrounding area. And that gives you a very good overview of I think of the development pressures, the existing conditions that face this 24-acre property in terms of its proper development as well. Moving to the property itself, something that I think a lot of people do not realize is how this property is currently zoned and how it's been zoned in Cobb County. This property is currently in Cobb County, though it's virtually surrounded by the city of Smyrna. And as you can see on the screen before you, property is basically split half and half almost, with NRC, the commercial and retail category, that extends all the way up to Campbell Road and to Spring Road, basically forming the northern half of the property, and office, institutional, or O&I forming the southern half of the property, stretching all the way to the railroad tracks. And what these combination of zoning categories allow for under its current zoning, that is how it could be developed for tomorrow without coming in front of this planning and zoning board or going in front of city council to receive approvals, but as it would be entitled to be developed today. There are a variety of uses: hotels, daycares, certainly offices, medical offices, group homes, gyms, gas stations, and a variety of retail shopping centers, retail stores, as well as restaurants. It's a very wide array of uses that are available for development of this property today without going through this process whatsoever. In addition, I think it's important to consider this property, and hopefully you will as well, in the context of the city's plans for the area, their own future land use plan, their own 2040 policy guidelines. And as we look, we see where the property is. Again, it's denoted by the star there on Spring Road, and you can see where this property is located. It's located in a key annexation area that's been identified by the city, and obviously this piece being surrounded on three sides by the city of Smyrna is a key annexation piece. In addition, you can see how it's in close proximity to the SunTrust Park, I guess Truist Park major hub area now, keeping in mind that as that gets closer and closer to this area, that's also slated by two different studies for increasingly high-density development along the Spring Road corridor, which includes this property. The closer you get to what's now Truist Park, and the closer you get to the SunTrust Park or Truist Park major hub, and these are designated on the city's plans. In addition, when you look at the future land use map, it's important to see how the city has designated the surrounding area as well. The bright purple you see, and you see the subject property and our property there in the middle again and identified. The purple area is the regional activity center that the city has designated for this area along Spring Road as a regional activity center, for future land use designation. Cobb County has this property designated as a community activity center for this property, and then as you move naturally as you move to the east along Spring Road as well as Campbell Road is when you begin to see the more medium density and low density residential categories, keeping in mind that just south of this property, adjacent to it across the railroad tracks, Cobb County has also designated that area as high density residential on their future land use map, all which affects what we believe consideration of this property for development. Now showing the same site plan that Mr. Dobbs went through. Again, what we're proposing is development of this property as a mixed use with two mixed residential uses. Number one being 170 age-restricted senior living units. And you can see that building and where it's located just off of Spring Road and Campbell Road at the northern end of the property, with a proposal for 114 townhomes along the southern end of the property. That has been a reduction. Initially, it was proposed for 180 age-restricted units and 117 townhomes as part of this application as we've worked with your city staff and held multiple meetings. The site plan has a variety of highlights to it, which I will get to, but starting with the senior living facility, one of the things that we looked at and the inline communities looked at in terms of developing this property is looking to see what do you do at that extremely busy intersection of Spring Road and Campbell Road as far as a use. Do you keep it commercial and develop it for retail or office, which would have a much higher level of traffic impact since we know that traffic is going to be an issue? Do you continue to try to propose development as additional townhomes but more densely? That's exactly what had been proposed before in a rezoning application a couple of years ago in Cobb County when this whole site was proposed for over 170 townhomes. They densely packed in the townhomes at that northern end with buildings. What we are proposing, just the townhome section of the property, is really at 6.9 units per acre. So that gives you a much better sense of the real level of density from a townhome standpoint that we're proposing. The proposed senior housing as a senior living facility is designed here in a single building. That demographic trends much, much higher in terms of its age. Most of the residents will tend to be higher in age, not simply 55. That's how this type of senior living facility works and operates and the programming for it. And that's who will occupy those units, is those folks who want to make that change in their life and have a quality of life that's associated with a single building like this for senior living, which is direly needed along this corridor, as it's simply missing as an option for a large segment of our population and the population in the city and nearby. This particular one, as it's designed and as you can see, and as you might expect, the demographic for the residents there will be much older, much older, and as a result, from a traffic impact standpoint, far, far less than many other uses that could be proposed here or could be justified here, and certainly far, far less than the traffic impact of the existing commercial zoning. Now, kind of turning through the component parts of this proposed development and community. First is that senior independent living. You can see here the site plan kind of in greater detail, where you can see how the arrangement of the facility around a central courtyard, a large amenity area inside that central courtyard for the enjoyment of the residents. Also on the right-hand side of the screen, you can again see that representation of the high quality of residential architecture that will be visible from the street and how this will look and appear, as well as a real-life photograph of the developer's type of high quality that you can expect at this location as well. Again, highlighting the quality of the senior living. These are pictures of interiors of a comparable senior living facility by the builder that will be doing this. And you can see the level of quality that we're talking about here in terms of senior living and available for those residents, both interior of the rooms as well as the amenities and the senior programming and amenities that go with that senior living facility. Now turning to the townhomes themselves, a little bit about Toll Brothers, who will be the builder for this proposed community. Toll Brothers, you haven't seen them a lot. They're now back into Atlanta area and are looking very much excited about this particular location. They are certainly one of the leading luxury home builders in the nation. We've even listed some of the many awards that they have won Just so you're familiar with Toll Brothers, in case you are not, and the high quality that they bring here. We've provided the elevations of the proposed units, which will fit very nicely, and we'll show you how that works, fit very nicely within the context of this development site plan, with price points that'll be between $450,000 and $525,000 really and up for these townhomes. So they'll be extremely well appointed, of high quality. A little bit about why this development will continue to be high quality, and that is we've gone so far as to have details on the pocket park and pool area design. And what this is a detailed site plan of that first pocket park. When you're coming in off of Campbell Road, on your right, as Mr. Stobbs pointed out, there's a large pocket park area along this, which will be heavily landscaped to create this park area. It will not be a gated portion of this property, so it will be available for anybody that wants to walk and go sit down at one of the park benches and enjoy their afternoon. In addition, you can see the level of detail that's being provided for the amenity, the full amenity there with the pool and clubhouse for the townhome community. Again, highlighting the quality and why we believe, and why Toll Brothers certainly believes this can be a fabulous development from a price point and from a sustainability standpoint for price points. Again, we're showing here additional pool area design inspirations so that you can again see the level of quality that's being proposed here, and so that those who have not been a part of the meetings can see exactly the type of quality that we have been proposing all along and will be included as part of this development. Also, one of the big items that we have gone and taken a great deal of resource and effort is in terms of the overall open space. There is a large portion of the land, 27.4% of the land along the creek that is provided for additional passive park area that you can see is noted on this site plan. In addition, we have highlighted and worked very, very closely and very, very hard with a very lengthy landscape buffer and a buffer plan that's along our entire eastern boundary adjacent to Vinings Point, where you see the type of trees that have been specified for planting, as Mr. Stobbs said, along that ridge line for the most maximum effect. A little bit about how that works. Again, these are townhomes that are specifically designed. The phrase really to use is reverse basement. The two profiles or cross sections that you see on the left, on both of them, the left-hand side of your screen is Vinings Point, and then it comes across through the townhome portion of the development. And what you can see is that at the top of the ridge, which is the left-hand side of your screen, we are developing the property and then placing the homes so that the two-story side of the home is to the adjoining neighbor's side, and it falls to the three-story side interior, therefore to reduce any height impact, but also because you have two and a half story single-family homes adjacent to us, and therefore you're matching that level of expectation and height impact. In addition, by doing it this way, you maximize the effect of the landscape buffer to be planted along the top, as well as, please keep in mind, Vinings Point has a separate 10-foot landscape buffer along the rears of their properties that stretches down this eastern boundary as well, that's well planted. Between the two, you'll have 20 feet of maintained landscape buffer along this entire ridge line that'll protect the view sheds of both existing Vinings Point residents and our proposed residents as well. Getting to some of the traffic and access issues, which I know is important for a lot of people whenever you have a project such as this. First and foremost, it was important for us to go ahead and preserve the future connectivity right-of-way that has been done on other projects along Spring Road, and we've likewise made sure that that's a protected corridor for future connectivity. That's in accordance with your Spring Road Corridor LCI plan, as well as the Smyrna Gateway plan, and that's included as part of our plans as well, and staff did a good job of noting that too. In terms of our overall access, there are multiple points of access, and I want to go through those with you. Starting at the northern end at Campbell Road and Spring Road, we have a right-in, right-out on Spring Road that's gated, that solely serves the senior living facility. In addition, we have a full access driveway on Campbell Road, and again, it will be gated coming in and off of that access, both to the senior living facility as well as to the townhome community portion. Again, we're pointing out and highlighting where we've preserved and reserved future right-of-way for connectivity should the city ever undertake that project. Lastly, while not originally proposed, we worked very hard, and the developer, Inline Communities, has committed the very, very expensive crossing of the stream to access existing Woodruff Road public right-of-way that adjoins our property to provide yet another connection point. Why was that done? Simply because what we are trying to do is ensure that there are multiple points of access, at least two here, so that you can avoid all access to these homes, to these townhomes on Campbell Road at the one access point near the light at Spring Road. This allows another reliever road for those who are wishing to travel east on Spring Road. They can come out and go on Spring Road and get off of Campbell and go that way as another proposed alternative. Again, what that does is it helps disperse this traffic and it helps disperse the traffic impact without question, both coming in and leaving. And that has been studied to death by our traffic engineer, with multiple reports submitted to your city traffic engineer, multiple revisions based on those comments, and multiple updates based on the various component parts, resulting in ultimately the recommendation and conclusion in your staff analysis from the city engineer that this will not place an extraordinary burden on traffic or existing traffic and road infrastructure. And in fact, we think it's even more important when you consider the traffic question. It's not 24 undeveloped acres. The traffic question, we think, and hopefully you will agree, should be considered in the context of how would it be developed today as entitled versus what we are proposing. And it's a very clear contrast in traffic impact. We generated a site plan based on the existing zoning for commercial and office buildings, and as a result, included within our traffic information a comparison of trip generation based on what it is today versus what we are proposing. What we are proposing would be 85% less traffic impact in the morning peak, 88% less traffic in the afternoon peak hour of traffic impact, and 84% less traffic impact in the 24-hour period. That's the difference between the type of proposal we are proposing to you, which contains a large senior living component that has a very low traffic impact, as well as only 114 townhomes. The difference is stark and obvious between those various traffic impacts. And if somebody thinks that this type of development of office and retail cannot be done here or would have already been done, please understand sometimes it takes a while for the markets to get here. But I know for a fact, and I know that some of you have, as we've had meetings before, where you've had medical office building proposals just on the other side of Campbell and Atlanta Road and elsewhere in this vicinity that would love nothing more than to have a large campus area like this where they could do such a medical office building. That's not what we're proposing. But I want to take away the comment that why hadn't it been done before, or just go ahead and do it, that it'll never get done. We've seen it too many times that property zone like this, when the market hits it and it's done, people say, well, how does that come about? Because they're allowed to do so under the current zoning. Lastly, I want to just point out the economic impact to the city from such a development. It's over $680,000 of economic impact just based on sewer tap fees, LDP fees, and annual city taxes, keeping in mind that the senior living facility pays full taxes as the senior exemption is not applicable. Lastly, I just want to again show you this site plan and again highlight for you that staff, through its detailed analysis while this application has been pending since last fall, has come forward with a recommendation for approval with staff recommendations of stipulations and conditions, each of which we are in agreement with, and has recommended that approval with many, many comments demonstrating why their approval was reached and why that conclusion. And we urge you and respectfully request you to recommend the same to Mayor and City Council. Thank you for your time here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yes. Thanks, Joel. Mr. Moore, hi. One quick housekeeping. The elevations in your handout don't match the elevations in staff's paperwork. So, if you're able to move on, and for mayor and council, y'all are going to want to match those. Make sure that everything's appropriate there.
Certainly.
Does Inline have senior living experience? Have they developed a senior living?
The senior living would be Highlands Residential.
Okay.
Kind of like Toll Brothers.
Gotcha.
Inline's the developer, and then Highlands Residential, which has extensive senior living experience, would be the senior living owner and operator.
Highlands, got it. What, one other item, you mentioned the townhomes a couple years ago, 170 units, and it was, I think it was still through Cobb. It didn't come through Smyrna.
Correct.
Why was that withdrawn? I don't even think it got to motion.
It did not reach the Board of Commissioners. Ultimately, it was withdrawn as an application. That proposal had been met with a objection letter from the city of Smyrna. Under the city and county's land use agreements, whenever you have a property that's along the edge of the city boundary, on the one hand, in those cases that's being proposed for rezoning in the county, the city has an opportunity to raise objections, which it did, and it listed a multitude of objections based on the density of having 170 townhomes and the overwhelming traffic impact that would have at that level with just townhomes and not much more. And I'm just generalizing what that letter said. At that time, based on that letter, based on additional feedback we had, and I was representing the applicant at that time, they ultimately made the decision to withdraw, and it was not heard. In contrast, now that this is proposed for annexation, as this property, I mean, there's no reason for it not to be in the city. It's nearly completely surrounded. The county had its opportunity to object as well, and the county issued its non-objection letter to the city based on this proposal.
I do want to say that the senior living component is excellent. That's something that the whole region is in dire need of. A little concerned about that being a Trojan horse to allow for a different use in the back. Do those, are these two projects married? So to say is, could we have senior living and then no townhomes?
They are married for this proposal.
Okay.
They go together because it's, again, you've got 24 acres, and they do go together.
Thank
And
you.
we think they're consistent because of the residential nature of both and how they can both marry up and not conflict with each other.
Thanks.
Sure, but appreciate the comment and questions.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you much, Mr. Moore.
Thank you very much.
All right, hold on, Mr. Moore. Hey, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. We had a little bit of a delay, so we're going to try
sure.
this. Y'all just bear with me. Mr. Bentley? It's like 30 seconds of delay. I tried timing it earlier, so hopefully he'll hear me on the TV and then
Sure.
come back to his phone. Hey, Mr. Bentley, can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay. This would be a little bit easier if I do it like this. All right, let's try this again, Mr. Bentley. He does have a question for you, Mr. Moore.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, it's got maybe a two-part question, but one has to do with density. This project is laid out as 11.85 units per acre because it's a 284 total units between the townhomes and the senior units. And the one, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you all the way up through your math on the units. Mr. Bentley, did you hear me? Oh, this is fun. All right, let me try one more thing, guys. It may be the microphone. Mr. Bentley, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So your question, you got to the density, the number of units. Go ahead, and I'm going to try and ask for you because the speaker's not working well. Okay. Let me see if I can ask that question for you, okay? All right, so Mr. Bentley's question is the total number of units is 284 for this proposal. There were 170 in the previous proposal that was withdrawn. He doesn't understand or would like to understand how that has a less impact on the traffic. Okay?
Sure. The biggest difference comes between the traffic that's generated from AM and PM peak generation and total trips for a townhome unit, a fee simple townhome unit, somebody buying a townhome or a couple or a family or whatever. The differences in the generation of trips from townhomes or living versus the trips generated. I guess like being on tape delay and on the radio, versus the trip generation that occurs when you have an age-restricted senior living facility. It's dramatically different. And I'm happy we have Mr. Abdul Amir here. He's the traffic engineer with A&R Engineering, prestigious traffic engineering firm here in Cobb County. And he put this together, and we're happy to have him. He can explain it on a more detailed level, but the basic difference is it does have a stark difference in trips, which is traffic impact. And the senior living facility portion of this is why we decided it did work, is because it has far, far less impact on traffic, far, far less impact on schools, water, sewer, on all of the services that normally you're concerned about from a DISD standpoint, including traffic. If you'd like, we can have Mr. Amir speak to that specific
I got a feeling we're going to get a few questions about that.
Sure.
So why don't we save that and we'll bring him back at another time.
Perfect.
A little bit later in the hearing. All right, Mr. Bentley, you'll hear Mr. Moore's answer online. But what was your other question, sir? Okay. All right. Very good. Is that your only question then? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bentley. And thank you guys for your patience in doing that. All right. Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. And we have representatives from Highlands Residential as well as Toll Brothers and Inline Communities, along with the engineer, traffic engineer. So any questions that we can answer, we have the people here available to do so.
I appreciate you guys being prepared this evening. Thank you very much. All right. While we get the podium prepared, the way we're going to try and do this is we're going to have you guys come up one at a time. After the first person speaks, we're going to see if there's anybody that's on the phone to speak or has any questions, concerns that would like to have their voice heard. So if you'll just be patient, we'll get through it as quick as possible. So this is a public hearing. At this time, we'd like to ask if there's anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. Please come forward one at a time, state your name and address for the record, and sign the sign-in sheet at the podium. Come on up. Good evening and welcome.
All right. Well, my voice is pretty loud anyway. I live at 2890 Woodruff Drive, and our concern, we're 28 townhomes that go along what is currently Woodruff is a dead end. It terminates at the creek or the waterway at the bottom that they're going to build a bridge across and have access, and they're going to gate their community, so we won't have use of that as a throughway for our use, but they will be able to use Woodruff for their use. Now, the city of Smyrna allowed single-family homes right across Spring Road to be replaced by multi-unit townhomes, and then down at Sports Avenue, just down Spring Street, where the megachurch used to be, they also allowed a huge development of townhomes, multi-family residential, down there. So the traffic studies that the gentleman has had done, and the city has also had done, do not take into account the future traffic that is already in the making by those two heavy developments that have already been approved and are being constructed as we speak. So we have yet to see the impact of those developments, and now we're going to add another one. And Woodruff Drive is about 22 and a half feet wide. It's basically enough for two cars to pass side by side. There are multiple businesses at the end at Spring Street at the corner, one of which is a used car dealership whose customers use Woodruff to park on while they make their car payments or go shopping for cars. There is a daycare that during pickup and drop-off times does not have a parking lot big enough for the amount of parents dropping off their children. They also park on Woodruff Drive to conduct their business at the busiest times of day when residents from these new townhomes would be using Woodruff to try to get onto Spring Road and avoid Campbell Road. I mean, it's a nice thought, but Woodruff really wasn't constructed. You cannot turn left from Woodruff onto Spring because of the divider right at Argyle Elementary, and then they have that crossover pedestrian bridge. There's an island in the middle of Spring Road there. So traffic-wise, it would be a bottleneck, and it would create a lot of problems for everybody involved. So thank you very much.
Thank you much, sir. All right. At this time, we're going to see if one of our citizens that's on the phone would like to speak.
All right, Ms. Buffington, you can go ahead. Ma'am?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Oh, shoot. Okay, it's a 30-second, not a 3-second delay?
No, it's a 30-second. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm not seeing. I saw the gentleman's face. Okay, well, I live in Vinings Point on Bickham Way. My name's Donna Buffington. And I've been watching this on my computer because I'm, 59 years old and have health problems and can't currently leave my home because of, the executive orders and the COVID. I appreciate you all arranging this, and really, I know this is a difficult time, but this has been very difficult for me to participate in. I can't see any of the slides. I can't hear some of the things that people are saying. That's not a criticism, it's just some perspective, and I also don't know if you can hear me either. I need to mute my computer now too, pardon me, because it's now, I'm hearing me. My name's Donna Buffington. And, oh dear, I'm not being able to mute me, okay. Oh, there we got it, I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay. And I guess maybe I should just skip to an ultimate question, which is, I guess on a certain level, I'll just leave this hanging out there, but I would request kind of from a fairness standpoint, I noticed that the applicant has requested postponement several times of this meeting, which was originally supposed to be held prior to the pandemic outbreak. And now we're all now there's a big rush right here in the worst, the worst illness time and the most danger. We're having to try to consider this. And I would ask possibly, if I don't know how to do this, but that's not table, I'd like to ask for postponement of the vote to maybe the next meeting, so maybe we can possibly submit things in writing, maybe see some of these documents, these talked about or maybe put up on slides. Anyway, so that puts down to factual issues. I'd say, you know, I agree. I think the senior living area is a great idea. And I know that's something that's wanting, at least that's our, make note that there is a senior living facility gated the street less than half a mile. I think it's on Woodland Terrace, a rest. I think it's called. But if we need more, we need more. My biggest issue is something I think one of the commission and also why do these two marry together? Mostly is density, composition, townhome community. Item one of the documents, I didn't get the documents this afternoon, but item one of the documents just says kind of almost like this is compatible surroundings, and I think it really said it's certainly not compatible with our subdivision as proposed, because whereas we have single family homes on, you know, about a fifth or a quarter of an acre, this is big blocks of buildings that are going to be like 150 feet wide contiguously and 3 feet tall, and they're going to use as residences, which would basically there's going to be like more residences in a small plot that was originally cleaved off from the plot that our subdivision is in. There'll be more people living there than living in our entire subdivision, and I think that is going to be a huge traffic impact. But let's see. Also, the other issue is I'm one of the original residents. I bought my home in November of 1968 when it was being built, and at that time we were told, I don't know if this has been covered otherwise, we were told that that block was not, presumably that's why they obviously that was not built for residentially, like a floodplain or rock. And then there would be commercial stuff up, like up the street or whatever. So that's another comment. The issue of the flood. About the floodplain, whatever they're going to do, I'm wondering how that, or if there's been a grant of floodplain. It's not just a small grant, it's up and down subdivision. And we've had to have our detention pond redone, I think, twice. And it's been expensive and complicated, just that little branch. And that's off the main thing. And so number one, I don't know what the studies are about that. And number two, I wonder what the impact will be on our branch when they do their studies about that. And then lastly, to a very specific issue, because this was kind of, this was kind of mentioned as a throwaway besides the rezoning. And this is pretty big since my personal, because I'm on that huge property line. It seems they're requesting a variance from the 50-foot setback that would be required for a large plot like that under 503, and asking for the 50-foot buffer, the 50-foot landscape buffer be reduced to 10 feet, and I think that's quite a bit, and I don't know what the justification is for that, and I think that would very much detrimentally impact us to have 150-foot long buildings, you know, in our backyard. And yeah, those buildings may be residences and things about purpose, because all we see out is structure, you know, depending on what's going on. And so that's the thing. So not really clear. Am I done? Okay. Well, all right. Thank you for your attention to my input.
Thank you, ma'am. All
Thank
right,
you so much.
come forward one at a time. Please state your name and address for the record, and if you feel comfortable, please remove your mask so we can hear you clearly.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the board, gentlemen from Inline Communities. My name is Will Dempsey. I live at 3390 Campbell Road. I'm like the second house on the left from Atlanta. And what I alternately refer to as the Talla-Argyle Speedway, or sometimes the Orme-Campbell Memorial Highway, depending on what my traffic's like on any given day. And the area where this community is proposed, I have a perspective that's probably a little helpful. I am the residential concierge for a residential mixed-use community, almost exactly in footprint and in scope of what's being proposed here. I work at a place called the Alistair at Aria Village. It's right next to Mercedes-Benz headquarters. There's an Ashton Woods community that surrounds us with townhomes, and we are a 355-unit mixed-use multifamily community right in the middle of that. And we're occupied exactly 170 units today. So by coincidence, I see exactly the level of traffic and the level of deliveries, the level of vendors, the number of people that come and go from there. And we have 4 egress and ingress points to our community. So, I manage the traffic flow on a lot. I see exactly who comes and goes. And I do think it's a beautiful thing to possibly have a age-restricted senior living community there. But I will say, what concerns me, the gated community aspect of it, I don't know if anybody's ever watched an Amazon driver futilely attempt to get past somebody's gate for minutes and minutes and minutes on end because they can't make contact with the person they're trying to deliver to. I exit that area of Campbell every day, sometimes on my bike, sometimes in my car. But when the traffic patterns kind of return to normal, I've counted as many as 37 cars waiting to get out in the morning during rush hour to try to exit my community. And I'm not trying to be pithy or a smart aleck, but I asked this, and at the risk of sounding like I'm repeating myself, I asked this at the town hall: is anybody at Inline Communities wait 3 to 5 light cycles in their own neighborhood to exit their community, right? And if so, would they be so enthusiastic about this property, about this project? And finally, my last question is, the builder of our community was Streetlights Residential, and I like to think that people truly do want to deliver a good product for the people, for both the fee simple townhome owners, the leaseholders in the community, in the apartment community. And I think it would be helpful for those people. They will not be needing their leasing agent or their realtor between 7 and 9 a.m. in the morning. I think it would be fair to let anybody who considers living in this community know they're going to have a very, very difficult time getting on Campbell Road when traffic is normal, because if we can't get out, they can't get out. So I am very grateful for the opportunity to address ladies and gentlemen of the board and ladies and gentlemen of Inline Communities, and I thank you very much for your time, and I'll look forward to seeing the results of your vote. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey. All right, we're going to try one more phone call as we disinfect the podium. There is. It's 5 minutes. There is a 5-minute time limit, just so you guys know. But we're going to try to be as fair as possible and get all the input that we can get. Also helps, developers hear the challenges from you guys firsthand, so that hopefully they can make improvements to their plans. Goes a long way to having buy-in from you guys and from the developers. So appreciate you guys bearing with us. Sounds like we have somebody on the line.
Hold on, I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
My name is Judy Bost. I also live on Woodruff Drive. I'm going to add a bit to the previous resident on our street regarding the amount of traffic and congestion at the corner of Woodruff and Spring. In addition, as he said, to the daycare, and there's a glass shop, car dealership on both corners. Cars, trucks are delivering materials and cars. And can you imagine the backup and congestion on our street with perhaps 300 more cars daily? And as another previous speaker mentioned, that does not include deliveries, vendors, etc. Now, this developer knows that having entrances only at Spring and Campbell Road is not feasible due to the congestion there, but this cut through on Woodruff is an untenable solution. And as we also discussed back in July of 2018, the city, as well as Cobb, did not favor the rezoning at that time, also due to the increasing traffic congestion. But what has changed in 2 years? In fact, it has gotten much worse. We cannot keep adding high-density complexes without expecting congestion that will make Smyrna residents wish they had never chosen to live here. And one other thing regarding the supposed senior living facility, this is for 55 ages and up. These are independent people. They still work. They still drive. And they will be adding to already a situation that will just become deplorable for our drivers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. My name's Jenny Shover. I live in Vinings Point at 1173 Drewsbury Court. I'm here in opposition to this project. I have a couple of questions that I hope you guys will pursue answers to and sort of help us to understand. I see that the staff proposal recommends it, but I just hear a lot about why it could be worse. And I don't want to make a decision to accept something just because it could be worse. I'd like to hear more about why it's better or why it's good and why I might want to have this in my neighborhood, because everything that I'm hearing makes me not want it. I think I recall from the town hall that was held at the fire station that the 55 and over facility will not have amenities like a beauty shop or those kinds of things. So the people who live there will still have to have transportation in and out for all their basic services. And then there's been some just very casual mention about changes to Campbell and turn lanes and adaptations of the road, but all these fancy graphs and charts, I don't see anything about that. And that's going to have an enormous impact both during construction, which they say will be 2 to 3 years, so construction traffic coming and going, but also roadway being torn up. And I can tell you, on my way here tonight, I left my house in Vinings Point at 5:15 during a pandemic, and there was 7 cars backed up to turn left onto Spring Road, and there was almost an accident because there's people trying to come out of the farmers market strip shopping center. They're zooming across through the Shell station, and there were people coming out of the Shell station trying to go left onto Spring Road. And so I was trying to be nice and let somebody out, and it nearly caused a crash. That was today at an off-peak time. So I feel like adding any additional cars to that mix in what is already a choke point is just asking for disaster. So I would like more information about the proposed changes to the roadway, and I think you're severely underestimating the traffic impact. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your time. All right, and while we clean up one more time, I see you, Mr. By. We got one more phone call, and then in the absence of anybody in the room that wants to get in front of Mr. Bai, I'll entertain it. We have a really beautiful picture on the screen in front of us. Is there any chance we could get the site plan put back up there, please? Or anything that makes me wish I was at the... No answer. Okay. Is that our last caller? Okay. Very good. All right. Who's next? Mr. Bai. He's way ahead of you, bud. Good evening and welcome back, Mr. Bai.
My name is Monty Bai. I'm a 14-year resident of Williams Park. First of all, I'd like to just say to community development, I recognize they have a difficult job. I've witnessed firsthand how hard they work in trying to balance the competing needs and desires of the community, and it's a thankless job, and I appreciate the work that they do. The Spring Road LCI Master Project Plan for Spring Road Corridor stated that it could support 3 to 5 luxury apartment complexes over the next 10 to 15 years. That would be a period that extends to 2032. As was previously pointed out, in the last year alone, we've seen 4 high-density projects that have made it to the P&Z and/or the council agenda. Combined, these projects would add nearly 1,000 high-density units along already clogged Spring Road. The traffic study as part of this development looks at the impact of key intersections for this development in isolation, as was previously pointed out. It does not take into account the impact to the traffic of these other developments. Rather, it assumes a modest growth of 3% until 2022 and 1% in 10 subsequent years. A previous traffic study that was done a little over a year ago for the Cumberland Church project that got approved estimated the traffic on Spring Road at 34,000 trips a day. A little over a year later, this traffic study estimates the trips on Spring Road at 40,000 trips per day. The cumulative effects of these projects could add 5,000 additional trips to the Spring Road per day. That is not to mention the 200-room hotel that was approved for Spring Hill Parkway. The intersection at Spring and Cumberland is the most problematic in the city and likely the county. Traffic studies have given the Spring and Cumberland intersection during peak hours a grade of F, with wait times of 3 times the level deemed unacceptable. This study suggests that adding a dedicated right-hand turn lane from Spring Road to Cumberland and some signal phasing changes on the southbound right turn lane to a protected overlap will have the effect of cutting wait times 60% at that intersection. I'm skeptical. Regardless of what happens with this application, if we're going to see that dramatic of an improvement to the intersection with those minor changes, I think we should move forward with those ASAP. Spring and Woodruff would see wait times go, and there's a couple people that spoke that live off of Woodruff. They'd see their current wait times from 63 seconds to 3.5 minutes in 2 years. And if I'm reading the study correctly, it was hard for me to believe when I read it. It says that those wait times will go to 7 minutes by 2032. 7 minutes, or nearly 8.5 times the level the study indicates is an F for unacceptable. Moving beyond traffic, this development does not meet the intent of zoning review factor number 1. It abuts a large single-family residential neighborhood, and Campbell Road is lined by single-family residential neighborhoods. In fact, in a letter that was previously referenced by Mr. Moore from the Smyrna then Director of Community Development, Ken Sudreth, in April 2018 to the Cobb County regarding a proposed 218-unit townhome community on the same tract of land, the city was not supportive of the development, stating it was incompatible with Spring Road LCI and the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Amongst a number of concerns expressed in the letter, it said, quote, "The proposed density for this development is in direct conflict with the comprehensive plans for the city." It should be noted that development at that time had a density of 8.95 units per acre. This current development has a density of 11.85 units per acre. The letter from Mr. Sudreth at the time goes on to express concern that the proposed development, quote, "immediately joins a City of Smyrna single-family neighborhood with a density of 2.9 units per acre and a future land use of low-density residential. This proposed development does not conform to the intent of zoning review factors number 5 and 6. The LCI does not specifically address this tract of land, but per the staff memo, the Sports Avenue and Baseball Boulevard areas are designated for medium density. The applicant themselves acknowledge and suggest a future land use change to high density to accommodate this development. High density is not envisioned for either the Sports Avenue or Baseball Boulevard sections or areas in the LCI. Both areas envision substantial retail components. The staff memo states the mixed use falls within the future land use designation of Community Activity Center. By definition, mixed use should include substantial retail and or office space. This proposed development has neither. If you're going to approve, and I believe that's a false choice that Mr. Moore has presented to you. He says, you either take this or you risk something much worse. Well, my experience, having been on planning and zoning before, is almost no developments of that magnitude get approved, move forward without having to get approval from planning and zoning and city council. There's certainly an opportunity for that to be reviewed. So if we're going to be making significant zoning changes for development, I would propose changing it to something that is more compatible with the low-density, single-family residential community it abuts, or a moderate density, truly mixed-use community that our long-term planning documents call for. For those reasons, I'm asking you to keep the Spring Road corridor livable for those of us that use it every day in wards 1, 2, and 3. And I request that you vote to deny this application. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bai. And would you guys do us all a favor? Let's not create a issue with cheering and stuff. Let's just take our time. Let's get all our comments out. All right, who's next? Yes, blue mask in the back. And if it's not blue, I'm sorry. It's blue camouflage. I like it. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak and share my concerns. My name is Brian Rodkey, and I live on 3069 Old Cabin Lane. And really, I don't have a lot to say. I am in opposition to this project. I love the trees that are there now, and it really would kill me to see them go. Trees have been chopped down all over the metropolitan area, and I think that's a shame. Obviously, development is going to happen, but the trees there they're very tall, and it's a nice cluster. If we were talking about rezoning, I would really rather have this discussion tonight be about rezoning it to keep some of those trees, or most of them, and turn it into parkland. I think that adds a lot of value to the area and really enhances property values. People like trees. But since that's really not the case, my feeling is that at the end of the day, if it's going to be developed, I'd rather have retail there, which is something the people in this area can use and potentially benefit from. That is not the case with a high-density proposal for townhomes and senior living. That's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. All right, Anybody else that'd like to come and speak in favor of or opposition to this application, please come. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's Robert Thompson. I'm a resident at Hampton Place. I live at 2976 Woodruff Drive. I'm actually the last unit at the bottom. And I'd just like to talk and voice my opinion, and I am totally opposed to this proposal. Basically, at the top of Woodruff Drive, we have 5 businesses. And as Mike Weiser has stated, the glass company gets a huge delivery truck every morning. It comes, it is absolutely massive, and when he leaves, he comes down and turns around in our driveway. The daycare is an issue with children crossing. Also the car wash. People also access Woodruff to go to the car wash, and then we have the 2 car lots at the top that do the business and back and forth. And also Woodruff joins the American Lung Association. So often we get traffic coming from them back across to Woodruff. So we have a choke point at the top there that is very hard for traffic, and with the residents on Woodruff Drive, you know, we have a hard time getting out. For me to come out this evening at about 5:15 to try to make that left turn onto Spring Road, you know, I nearly got T-boned. Basically, there's no left turn going across. There's nowhere that there's a little medium strip there that you try to get yourself in, and hopefully you dodge, you know, 4 lanes of traffic and you cut across and off you go. When it does back up there, we often have to cut through the daycare, and we're weaving in amongst kids because the only light that we can get to turn right onto Spring is the light at Racetrack. So we have to navigate through the pumps along with everyone getting gas just to get in the queue to turn right to get out to 285. I'm sure the developer has good intent. He talks a lot about Campbell and the traffic and how they're going to alleviate that. But when I put the hard questions to them at the fire station, you know, we got nothing. They could not explain how they were going to alleviate the traffic on Woodruff Drive for all the residents there now. There's no sidewalks there. We have a lot of elderly people living at Hampton Place that like to walk dogs, ride bikes. And as it is now, you know, we have to navigate along the road. And if you propose to put, you know, have 300 plus extra cars coming up there a day and all the vendors and everything else, I mean, there's going to be accidents. You know, people are going to get hurt. This is not a thought out proposal, and I'm just totally against it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I believe we had another over here. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. I'm going to start my timer here really quickly. So I was looking briefly in the audience at the traffic study submitted by the developer, and
Sir, I'm sorry. Can you state your name and address
I'm
the
so
record,
sorry.
please? No worries.
Skylar Akins. I'm at 1302 Countryside Place, Smyrna, Georgia. So I'd like to begin my comments with the developer's own data and give you a couple of very concerning existing traffic operations at both AM and peak hour. Spring Road at Village Parkway by the developer, existing, was assigned an F at AM and PM peak hour. Spring Road at Campbell, which is a C. I'm picking out just some of the bigger ones. Spring Road at Cumberland, the developer assigned the existing condition at an F for AM and PM, and its even effects will even be felt down at Campbell Road and Atlanta Road, where the PM traffic conditions are currently at a D. So now we'll go quickly into my prepared comments. We've heard this talk about senior development before here in Smyrna, Mr. Chairman. If you will recall, the Jonquil development was promised that there would be a senior housing element to that. I mean, the Belmont, excuse me. development, and as we all know, that never came to happen. So forgive me for having some reservations about promises from developers about senior or workforce set aside for housing. The high-density proposal by Inline Communities and Spring and Campbell Road at a whopping 35.8 units per acre has been similarly proposed before in 2018. Then Councilman Norton said of the proposal, "I am happy to report that the controversial zoning for 200-plus townhomes behind Argyle Elementary and Vinings Point at Campbell and Spring Road has been withdrawn. This is a victory for Spring Road residents. It was withdrawn then, and nothing since has changed. It should be withdrawn or rejected now by the P&Z and voted down by council this time. The following reasons were concerns then and remain to this day. 1, the removal of the last remaining parcel of green space along Spring Road, which is essential to the ecosystem of our neighborhoods and schools. 2, the impossible gridlock that such a high-density development would cause the surrounding neighborhoods and schools will negatively impact travel along Spring Road. 3, the development does not follow the guidelines defined in the City of Smyrna's future land use plan. And 4, the plan does not address the overcapacity that Argyle Elementary is currently experiencing and will leave no room for future expansion. The school traffic, the residential traffic, etc., will be a nightmare, and I almost believe that's disingenuous for someone, the Developers Council, to stand before you and promise that traffic somehow will not get better by adding over 200 units of development. I also wanted to speak a little bit about the Spring Road LCI. As someone already said, so I'll abbreviate it. It anticipated 3 to 5 developments until 2032. So that means now that in less than 2 years, we're going to add several developments that have been approved or in the pipeline, which include the Woodbury development this body wisely voted down but is going to council, Cumberland Station, formerly known as the Sports Avenue at Cumberland Church, with just 200-plus townhomes, the Pruitt Walk at Elmwood development with 23 townhomes, a proposed Emerson development with well over 300 units that include retail and a hotel, and this proposed development at Spring and Development with 200 units. It could cumulatively add over 800 units of housing to Spring Road in just under a year. Remember, the LCI spoke to 2032, and here we are in less than 2 years, already adding nearly 1,000 units. It's just, it's incomprehensible to say the least. And also, it's important to point out that the LCI didn't address this property because it's not in the city of Smyrna. I would like to see it annexed into the city of Smyrna, but remain as is. Also, the overarching concern of Spring Road communities is that we are not being heard on these matters by our elected officials, and we are simply being brought to the conversation too late to make any substantive changes to these proposals or give any input on enforceable conditions. We don't find out about them until the yellow sign goes up and the clock starts ticking on any type of decision. Mayor Derek Norton is cited in the Marietta Daily Journal on January 2nd of this year as saying, verbatim, "One of the things I heard most prominently on the campaign trail is, don't let Smyrna get too dense with townhome developments, because if we do that, we're not going to be able to enjoy anything we have to offer. We're not going to be able to get to any of it." That's his quote. My Ward 2 council member Austin Wagner's own website says right now, sustainable development must start at the local level. We are asking that the P&Z and the people and the council, which you all are appointed by, remember the promises made to the people of Smyrna and oppose this development that benefits big developers at the sake of legacy residents of Spring Road. It is our desire that you will vote this proposal down with a recommendation of council of do not approve. The quality of life and future of our great city depend on the decisions that you all make right now at this very moment, at this very time. And we want to join with you into continuing to make Smyrna the very best place to live, and as Money loves to say it, one of the best places in America to live and call home. Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Atkins. Thank you very much for your comments and your thorough preparation, for sure. Anybody else? Come on. Good evening and welcome.
My name is James Nunnally. I live at 1156 Drewsbury Court in the Vinings Point community. There's not much that I can say that you guys haven't already heard tonight, but I would feel remiss if I didn't use my opportunity to speak and let you know that I am absolutely against this. As they have pointed out, it's going to be developed. There's no question about that. But to posit the fact that you think that commercial and office spaces and things like that are in staunch opposition to residential in the capacity of 284 residents, not including the fact that many of those residents will be multi-car families. If we're planning on the age-restricted community having such a little impact as far as traffic concerns, why do they need over 221 parking spaces in the midst of all of that? Campbell and Spring, as you have heard, is an absolute nightmare to get out. I don't know if any of you live off of this, but I've heard from many of my neighbors, and I hope that you can understand those grave concerns. The people off of Woodruff, the people off of Campbell, backing up as far as Atlanta Road, as the gentleman spoke earlier. It is untenable in the proposal that it is right now. And what we heard back in, I believe it was February or March, everything's kind of running together right now. But when we heard at the fire station, we drew concerns about everything over at the farmers market and the many accidents and things like that. And we were told by the developers that it was not their responsibility to develop on the other side of the road. And I understand that. But given the space as it is right now, is extremely untenable in adding at least 284 more units, not including as many cars and other things. I've been a resident of the Cobb area for quite some time, but my wife and I just bought our first home in Vinings Point, butting up to where this development is. And that feels a little personal for me, and I know that those concerns are going to be felt on deaf ears because I am just one of many. I look forward to raising my family in this community. It is a very beautiful place, and if we continue to stack people on people on people, no one is going to want to live here. It is a nice area. It has so many things to offer as far as Truist Park and many of the commercial spaces that it already has, as well as its accessibility to downtown and the downtown corridor. But as it was brought up at the fire department, one thing that, if I believe was said correctly by the developers council, was that we cannot stop people from coming to Smyrna. And we're not asking for people to stop coming to Smyrna. Obviously, we all live here and we love this city. That's why many of these people are out here today. We're not trying to keep people from coming to Smyrna. We are trying to keep Smyrna a place that the people who have come here and would like to continue to welcome new neighbors and new families in to be the same place that they love. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Nunley. Don't make me gavel you guys. Sorry. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Come on. Oh, Lord. We've got one coming right now. If you give me just a second. Good evening and welcome.
How are you doing? I'm Virginia Sohatsky. I also live in the Vining Point neighborhood at 1120 Drewsbury Court. I'm speaking against the zoning proposal.
Try to speak into the microphone a little bit closer, please.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Could you state your name again?
Certainly, Mr. Pell. I'm Virginia Sohatsky, and I'm a resident of Vinings Point at 1120 Drewsbury Court. I'm speaking against the zoning proposal. I'm going to reiterate some things you've heard, but I'm also going to say a few new things. I really appreciate you listening to me. The buildup from Cobb Parkway is spreading too deep into the established residential communities. Please do not allow mixed-use zoning here. The area is already being built up with high-density townhomes along Spring Road to the east of us. There's the 108 on Sports Avenue and 59 on Bell Drive across from the racetrack. This is a substantial influx of people in a small area. As for this project, neighbors feel the proposed development is too intense. We're a mile from the stadium, away from the intensity of Cobb Parkway. We're not next to downtown or at the intersection of two big roads. We're low-density houses, 3.49 homes per acre. We have the longest border with the project, over a quarter mile long, and mixed-use zoning will directly cause a negative impact on our quality of life. Please consider the impact of putting Smyrna's two most extreme residential densities next to each other. We're concerned not just for today, but what will be in the future, since mixed use allows 25 units per acre to be built behind our fences. So this development is 100% residential, and as you all know, a planned residential development does not require mixed-use zoning to mix together different residential types. So why are we considering it now? Is mixed-use zoning the right thing for this project? There's many special requirements for mixed-use zoning that don't appear to be met. For example, item number 8 says that there needs to be a transit plaza and multimodal connections, and that they should be integrally connected to the development. This has none. Item 2 says attached dwelling units and apartments may not average less than 900 square feet. This has less. Item 7 requires public plazas and pedestrian zones around the apartment building. This has none. In fact, all the gates being put up on the property indicate the public is not welcome on this mixed-use project. To me, this signals the opposite of what mixed-use zoning was supposed to be used for. Is it normal to give mixed-use zoning for a development with no public access and no public parking? There's also hardly any transition space provided between the townhomes and the single-family homes. Specifically, there's 10 feet of trees, which concerns many neighbors. We're not asking for anything unusual. Large buffers between low and high intensities is customary. If this development were considered a non-residential district, no building would be allowed within 50 feet from our yards, and there'd be a 50-foot landscape buffer. If this development were considered a residential district, there'd be a 75-foot landscape buffer. But what we have on this plan is a 10-foot tree buffer, and this does not make sense. I don't know any other single-family subdivision in Smyrna having a new development this intense being built right up in their backyards. Now about the traffic. Neighbors are concerned about the traffic conditions, and with good reason. In the last 2 years, Smyrna police responded to 49 different car accidents right there at Spring Road and Campbell Road. 49. That's on average a wreck every other week. The spot is a mess. And it gets worse on the weekends because of the popularity of the international market. Cars back up into Spring Road and block oncoming traffic. Adding 284 new families will stress this area. We are told seniors won't have a cafeteria on site, so you can expect them to be out there going grocery shopping just like the rest of us. This accent point at Campbell Road is on a hill, and it's a terrible place to put an entrance to a road. It's just a dangerous mess of cars turning in and out of driveways, turning left, right, accelerating, slamming on the brakes. And this project does not help the situation. Everyone here knows it's a mess. Campbell Road is already used as a cut-through between Atlanta Road and Spring Road. And as bad as this entrance on Campbell Road would be, we have to remember, this is literally just a glimpse of what's going to come if you approve this project. Because when you approve this project, you also approve the entrance to what's going to become the beginning of the new planned cut-through over to Cumberland Boulevard. Instead of adding hundreds of cars to this accent point, there will be hundreds and hundreds more cars using it when it's done. Is the proposed left turn lane big enough to handle all those people? Anyone who lives here tell you this is a bad place to put a new road. My last point, please remember that we gave a thumbs down to the idea of high-density residential in this spot 2 years ago, and many of the problems the community expressed are still part of the development. In the letter that was referenced, written by Smyrna's Community Development Director back in 2018, he cited many things about the project he didn't agree with, including poor compatibility with the area, too many perceived variances, not enough buffer with single-family residential, concerns about the stream buffer, and negative traffic impact. And Cobb County planners also denied recommendation in their staff report. Cobb staff concluded that the high-density land use proposed by this project was not suitable here, it would have an adverse effect on the neighboring properties, was out of character with us, Vinings Point, because, quote, the townhome development which abuts the single-family detached subdivision to the west is too intense. and this is back when the townhomes were under 9 units per acre. From that time until now, some townhomes were removed, apartments added, but the project continues to have higher density than all surrounding neighborhoods. In fact, the density has increased. The buffers were reduced. Townhomes still line the backyards of the single-family homes. The total number of units increased, and there's a bridge across the stream buffer. It all appears to be moving in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm being patient, that's all. And they took my hammer away. All right, anybody else? Come on. As long as you promise not to clap for yourself, then we'll let you speak. That was a little joke. You can clap for yourself if you really want to, but nobody else can clap with you. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, I'm Patricia Capizera, and I live in Vinings Point subdivision. Have been there since this subdivision was built. I would be right across the street looking up to the back of these townhomes and then to this 10-foot buffer. This is not a conducive place to put this kind of development. And I want to just let it be known that we disagree with what this has to offer.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patricia. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. By my count, that's about 55 minutes of public comment. And I believe we gave the applicant, or the applicant took some 10 minutes roughly, plus or minus. So at this point, you guys have all done a fantastic job stating your concerns with the development. It is always an issue when a development backs up into your property or is adjacent to your property, and it's even more concerning when it's your first home. So I can see the many difficulties in the room, the challenges, and I'm really proud of you guys for all the homework you did and the data you brought up here. Now, we're not going to fact check you, but they will going forward, you will be fact checked. So make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's. But right now, we're going to have the applicant come back up. There will be no more public comment. We're going to have the applicant come up and try to answer some of these concerns. And I know that you guys have had a town hall. I know that we have members of the building companies that are here, as long as the developer. So we should be able to answer a lot of these issues, and hopefully we can reach some sense of clarity, which when it comes to traffic in Atlanta, I don't know that there is such a thing. So, Mr. Moore, if you could begin to address some of the concerns that you just witnessed, and if you need help, I've got a list, and I'm sure some of these guys up here have a list as well.
Sure, I'll do that. It's just in no particular order of importance, just because I want to make sure I can have a manageable list here. And then those that I believe could be best answered by potentially maybe the traffic engineer, I'll save for that. So if you think I'm not answering something, it may be just that we're doing that. Couple of questions I want to get to right away, just because I think they really are about the integrity of the process and why the public hearing now. Yes, this has been tabled, but it's been tabled because of COVID. We were ready to present this earlier. I think it was on the schedule for March or April, and it was delayed as all of us dealt with that, and specifically local governments tried to figure out how to have public hearings such as this. Prior to that, I think it's extremely important for folks to understand that, and you heard reference to it at the fire station, we had 2 community town hall meetings. We met with the HOA board of Vinings Point, I believe 5 times, all over the past really year, but really over the past 8-9 months, and that concluded with the last town hall type community meeting we had at the fire station in February. So, we have gone above and beyond in terms of trying to make sure that we gave the information, presented the information, listened. Now, whether they ultimately agree or not is their opinion. We understand that, but I think it's important for you to know that I think both city staff and the applicant in inline communities and the others, we've made ourselves available and tried to do this, and we have done so. As it relates to city council and city decisions on prior developments and whether they have heard people, I think they've absolutely heard people. This city has done, I think, some tremendous things. If you recall, that Sports Avenue development that's now moving forward, it's really about, I think it's about 100 townhomes, was proposed previously for 300 apartments, and it was denied. Just because something was proposed and ultimately changed or was denied, I think what you see from City Council over the last year, 2, 5, 10 years, and this Planning and Zoning Board is you consistently listen. Some projects are approved, some are not, but you've consistently listened, and I take offense to that because I've seen it firsthand. I was the one that handled the one that got denied, so I know what it feels like and know when the city responds in that regard. As it relates to compatibility, I heard that a number of times. And I think compatibility needs to be looked at from all sides. Vinings Point, yes, great subdivision, 7,000 square foot minimum lots, over 3 units per acre as a single-family subdivision, small lots. This now it abuts this property along its eastern boundary. But what also abuts this property is apartments, other townhomes, all at 8, 9, 10, 12 units per acre. What also abuts this property and is very intense commercial shopping center uses, a gas station, as well as the public institutional use of Argyle Elementary. So if we're going to talk about compatibility, let's not leave it, that discussion, to just is it compatible to Vinings Point. This property has all sides. So I think what balance the staff gave to compatibility as a term, and that is looking at, is this compatible to the surrounding area, not just one property. And I think staff called it out very well in their recommendation and analysis, and that is this provides an excellent transitioning from existing dense townhomes and commercial uses that are existing to Vinings Point. The townhome portion of this project is 6.19 units per acre. Could not be more transitional in nature and compatible when you take into consideration all of the surrounding properties and not simply just one. Also, there was a question about, I believe she had about stormwater. She was on the phone, but I think she did discuss that, and I want to be specific about that. As Mr. Stiles pointed out, the detention pond is in the southerly southeast corner. This site flows away from Vinings Point, not to Vinings Point. So stormwater is being managed through an extensive stormwater management system, and you can see there's, as we stated before, there's a great deal of the property that's being set aside as undisturbed area to protect that as well. As it relates to the complaint or criticism about us presenting this as a, well, it could be worse situation, so you should approve this. I don't believe that's at all what we've stated. I believe what we've stated is that if traffic is the concern, if traffic is the criticism, if traffic impact is the holy grail of opposition and criticism for this project, I'm simply asking that that traffic issue be considered in a proper context, and that is not 24 acres of undeveloped property, but what could it be developed for today without coming to the Planning and Zoning Board, without going to the City Council, but simply supplying building permits and development permits to Cobb County, which is where it sits right now, not to the city. This doesn't come back to the City Council as zoned to be built. It gives Cobb County community development for processing of permits. That's not a threat or ultimatum. I just want to make sure people understand that that's the proposal is one that we believe in a proper context of traffic impact that you must take into account what can be done with it today, not as an undeveloped piece of property. One question was about specifically on Campbell Road about what improvements are being made there. The improvements that are being made there relate to a deceleration lane, a left turn lane, and also that portion of Campbell Road will be widened in that curve to accommodate this, to accommodate those improvements, as well as the access, and that's why that it works, and that's been studied very crucially by our project engineer, by the city engineer, and by the traffic engineer. The question of the statement of we'll just have it as office or retail, and that's what we really need. And that, to me, flies in the face of we're really concerned about traffic. And I just think that those two aren't consistent with each other if you're looking for consistency, because there is no question about what happens when you develop this property for traffic, for office or retail or non-residential component like that. What we are proposing is far better from a traffic impact standpoint. Now, you have different opinions about the proposal, but from a traffic impact standpoint, there can be no question that this is a better proposal than how it's zoned and what it could be built for today. We also had some questions about Woodruff Drive. Initially, this proposal did not have a connection to Woodruff Drive, but in looking at all options for how do you have a smart quality development here that does everything it can, and the developer do everything it can to try to mitigate traffic concerns, try to mitigate traffic impact. There you have a city-dedicated public right-of-way of Woodruff Drive that dead ends into this property. And it's not a cul-de-sac, it's a dead end. It provides for it, as the gentleman stated, and it's there for connectivity. That's how you provide for lessening traffic impact, is to provide for more access, to provide for differing accesses. That's why the city in its long-range plan has provided for the connector reliever road for Cumberland and Spring Road. And we're simply doing everything that we can, and this developer is to their cost to do so. And I think it's a huge step in the right direction from that standpoint. As it relates to the buffer, I know there was a couple of different questions about the 10-foot buffer adjacent to Vinings Point. And I think there needs to be some clarification on that buffer plan. If we, I'm going to flip to the screen because staff had it too. Naturally, I went the wrong way. There we go. The proposed site sections. These are the cross sections for the buffer. Yes, we've called out a 10-foot buffer because that's the area that can be planted. As this cross section shows, and if you remember Mr. Stobbs talking about the ridge along this property line, where Vinings Point actually, where the houses sit behind their homes, their backyards will rise up to this property line. And in fact, they have a 10-foot planted buffer that's not part of that's part of a maintained buffer by the HOA along that entire, along their rear property line as it goes up. This property, once you get to that top of the ridge, it's going to start falling down to that creek that you've seen on our site plan. And so what we've tried to do is take advantage of that to the benefit of Vinings Point in terms of how we go about developing it and where that 10-foot landscape buffer would be. Because we could make it a 25-foot landscape buffer, but 15 feet of trees coming down that hill wouldn't be to their benefit whatsoever. It's coming down a hill that they never see. What we wanted to do was be concentrated and intentional by placing a landscape buffer along the ridge line so that from a visual standpoint, as you see these cross sections, where their houses would be to the left, where their second floor bedrooms, where their patios, where their decks, or whatever they're looking out of, they're looking up to their planted trees, through our planted trees, and then the townhomes start to fall below them. It's also important to note that that setback for those townhomes isn't 10 feet. They're 35 feet down the hill. That's just the buffer we wanted to make sure where it was impactful and not simply a line on a piece of paper that pretends everything's flat. So that's, I think, a better understanding of exactly how that buffer works, why we reverse garaged these units so that would further reduce any type of height impact as the two properties slope away from each other. And again, we did that in listening to them in our multiple meetings and hearing that, and understand that is why that's done that way, and we think it's very impactful from that standpoint. I know there's a couple of questions that you may want to have for the traffic engineer to undertake, but I certainly need to state this, and I think it's important for your consideration and for the weight that you might give it. But our Georgia Supreme Court has stated and has held that denying a rezoning based on traffic can't be justified. that if the reason for denying the rezoning is traffic-based, then they don't allow that. And they've stated that in a case that came out of DeKalb County where that was the reason it was denied, and the Supreme Court said, can't deny zoning based on traffic like that. Because traffic's part of our everyday urban living experience. Traffic as a whole is a system, it's not a simple road. And traffic as a whole is really controlled by the local jurisdictions working either independently or hopefully they work in a coordinated and joint fashion at some point in time. But traffic is something we all experience, and it cannot form the basis for simply denying a rezoning on that one item. With that, I'm going to invite, with your permission, I think Mr. Amir would like to could come forward. I think there's a couple of specific questions that I know of, and then if there's any others that I missed, I went through my list, but I'm happy to do that as well.
I'll keep looking through here. You hit a lot of points, and I really do appreciate you being thorough, and I get it. I've been up here a while, as you know. Mm-hmm. Traffic is an issue with this area of town, and yes, that's what you're hearing. You're hearing some very respectful, passionate discourse about this project and the impacts it's going to have on this area, and I know what you're talking about with the law, and not as well as you do, but I do recognize that, and it is in times like this, it's very frustrating, right? Because these folks are concerned about the further impacts of it. It's a real thing to me. I live here too. We all do. That's how we get up here. It seems like there's got to be a better solution. At least, I mean, this parcel is going to get developed, just like you said. Whether it's an office, whatever it is. But there's got to be some fundamental improvements to that intersection there. One question I do have while you're here, and the traffic engineer might be able to answer it better, is there's some concern about vehicles turning around at the end of Woodruff. They get down to the dead end and they got no place to go, and they're using the driveways and such to turn around down there. I mean, I don't mind people turning around in my driveway. They do it all the time, but I imagine if I had to see it every morning, because the guy's making a delivery, it would probably, get under my skin. So maybe there's something inside the traffic discussion that can be done to help alleviate some of those concerns. But we have to at some point recognize the frustration that is just, that is here. So if you want to bring your traffic engineer up, and sure. If there's any questions from you guys, feel free to hop in.
But yes, we all experience the pains of traffic, and I hear them, for sure.
Yeah.
Is he here? All right, so I can help direct him.
Yeah.
One of I think there was one specific question there were a couple, but one specifically is whether the traffic studies took into account newly approved developments and your growth rate on traffic as a whole overall was one question that was asked. That I think we do have a very specific answer for, as well as there were some other questions about impact Woodruff Drive and going forward in levels of service and how that will work overall. And those were the two specifically that I had. If I've missed one, then obviously y'all are great about reminding us. So this, just by introduction, this is Abdul Amir, Principal of A&R Engineering.
Welcome, Mr. Amir. We're going to get it all cleaned up. Thank you.
Good evening. Abdul Amir with A&R Engineering. If you don't mind, I'm going to keep my mask on and also step back a little bit. I'll speak louder.
Okay.
Just unrelated to what we're here to talk about, I really appreciate the social distancing, the mask regulations and all that, but one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, that if everybody steps in the same space here at the podium and takes their mask off, the air space right here could get contaminated with air droplets. And if somebody is asymptomatic and is carrying the virus, it could very well be the next person stepping in this space could get that. It's with that statement that I'd like to keep myself a little bit away from the microphone and keep my mask on. With respect to the questions for traffic, before I answer the two specific questions that Kevin requested me to, this study in general was done in consultation with the city staff in terms of developing a methodology of what the scope of the study should be, the trip generation, distribution, background growth. A lot of factors that go into the makeup of the study was primarily agreed upon by the city staff in terms of how the study should be conducted. So we followed those agreed upon methodology and conducted this very detailed traffic study, then amended it to add more information the city staff requested. At the end of the day, with review from your staff, they concluded that they had no further comments on the results of the study. The issue about other developments in the area. Typically, the standard method to include the impact of other developments in the area that could be happening simultaneously is to add traffic to the existing counts that we collect. In this case, as someone stated, 40,000 cars on a daily basis. Georgia DOT counted 40,000 cars on Spring Road. We have added 3% of 40,000, which 1,400 cars or something per year to the road system. I did that for 2 years. So we added about 3,000 or so cars just on Spring. Not to mention we added that same percent for 2 years on other roads. So that's a substantial amount of cars. And that is the standard practice in terms of adding background growth to account for other developments. It's done on a regular basis as a standard practice, and that's something that the city staff agreed to. The second question was Woodruff Drive. Spring Road, as you all know, 6-lane, heavily traveled road with 40,000 ADT. Any intersection that is not signalized on Spring Road will have the same difficulty in terms of having the ability to find a gap in both directions to be able to make a left-hand turn. Woodruff Drive does not carry a whole lot of traffic, nor will it after this development is concerned. We're adding 5 to 10 cars in an hour to the left turn there. The delays are always higher in terms of level of service for unsignalized roads on major corridors like this. What we are suggesting is what the city planners had envisioned. The solution to traffic congestion that so many people today spoke about is really about developing a grid network, developing more connections, not less connections, not cul-de-sacs. Connectivity is the solution at the end of the day to a major congestion problem like this. The city planners had envisioned a plan that they called the core area recommendations for Spring Road Gateway, including planned 3 types of roadway connections. One of such connections goes through our site. We can't be concerned about traffic and congestion and have disconnected, disjointed street system. All traffic engineers and planners' dream is to have more connectivity. And that will give you multiple options, and that is the ultimate solution for relieving some congestion here. This particular site acknowledges city's plan and is cooperative in helping establish that one connection on the south side of Spring Road. So that really is my recommendation, in addition to other recommendations I made at Cumberland and Spring Road and Village Parkway. Though while those improvements will help improve traffic, I think you need a larger solution, regardless of this property. And city is envisioning that larger solution through their master planning of the area, and this particular site plan accommodates that and becomes part of it. I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you all have.
Any questions?
When was this study done?
be glad to answer that if you all wish me to.
Go ahead, but please don't call out. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the traffic study was initially conducted and published on January 6th and then updated on July 10th.
Of what year?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah. The update really on July 10th was a minor one, just trip generation comparison.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Amir.
You're welcome.
There was one question that we didn't touch on. Mr. Moore, if you want to come back to the microphone. I believe there was one about the senior living component and the 200 parking spots.
Yes, you've got parking for both residents who are going to come to have a car, as well as you have various employees and guests, and so that's the kind of industry recommended number for that. I'm going to have, though, do you want to speak directly to that, Dave? I think it was a question raised why, if it has such a low traffic impact, then why 200 spaces?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. If we're going to have 200 parking spots, it means we can have 200 more cars. So
right. So I'd like because it has more to do with how they operate. So
There's probably a visitation component and some other stuff that's involved in this whole thing.
there's no question about it.
Let's see what you got. Good evening and welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure thing. Dave Lawful, Highlands Residential. My address is 1513 Murdoch, Marietta, Georgia.
Perfect.
We have a standards, roughly 1.3 parking spaces a unit. That's driven by residents, obviously, employees of the community, as well as vendors, guests, prospects, and that kind of thing. To address the driving and the hours, I think it's the restriction is 55 and older. But the reality is, it's recently retired grandparents is the demographic. The average age of the resident in these communities is roughly 74. It's kind of the industry average. And so, in that population, it's during the peak times, there are fewer trips, AM and PM.
Meaning they're not getting up and not necessarily getting up and going to work every day and engaging in the gridlock. Any other comments, questions? No? Thank you, sir. All right. Is there any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience working through this whole process. We always say it, property rights, developing stuff right next door to you is the most personal stuff in your life. City staff really does their best. They're like Mr. Bai said, it's an impossible position that these guys are in, and they do the best they can with the information and the ordinances and the community. So very appreciative of all the citizens here and the staff and the fire department for keeping us safe. And with that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
At this time, I'll make a motion to deny case Z 19-019, annexation and rezoning for 24 acres from Cobb County NRC-OI to City of Smyrna MU conditional.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Mr. Strago, we have a second. Please vote. The application is denied 5-0. Excuse me. Let me take that back. The application is not denied 5-0. Mr. Bentley, can you hear me? right, do you have a vote that you would like to cast? So you have a motion to deny, and we have a second. Mr. Bentley votes in favor of the motion, so the motion to deny is approved 6-0. Hang on, Mr. Bentley, I'll get you off here in just a second. All right, so that's 6-0, and my apologies, first time we've had a phone-in guest. All right, any further discussion tonight's meeting? All right, the last item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 29th meeting, Planning and Zoning meeting. Do we have a motion, Mr. Jones, to approve the minutes? And a second, Mr. Rice. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Mr. Rice. All in favor of the minutes as presented? The minutes are approved. Mr. Bentley, do you vote to approve the minutes as presented? Okay. The minutes are approved 6-0. Without any further discussion, we call this meeting at 8:09 in the p.m. Thank you, Mr. Bentley. We'll talk to you soon.